Hello, hello. Welcome to the Creative Women Wanted podcast. I am your host, Diamond Williamson. I am a director of development and creative production at Third and Wonder Production House, where we create unscripted documentary series and branded content for and about Black women and Black culture. And I am so excited to be talking to you all on this podcast about Black women and with Black women. This podcast is for the Black women working behind the scenes to bring to life our favorite television shows that are both scripted and unscripted. It's a community, it's a safe space for us to talk about our stories, talk about our journeys, talk about what we're watching, reading, and what we are learning. And today, I have an amazing producer, Monique Taylor, and she is phenomenal. She has produced so many things, so I'm going to get into her bio. Monique Taylor is an Emmy Award-winning television executive and producer with over 15 years experience delivering innovative, top-rated programming for networks including Netflix, VH1, MTV, E! Entertainment, ABC, NBC, Bravo, and TLC. Our girl be working, okay? She is from Chicago and she earned her BA in broadcast journalism from Morgan State University in Baltimore, Maryland, and an MA in documentary production from Emerson College in Boston. Her love of storytelling led her to Los Angeles to produce reality television, including hit shows for E! and MTV. She then moved to New York City to focus on developing and producing a series of talk shows, including The Wendy Williams Show, Bethenny, and The Steve Harvey Show. And today we are going to get into her work, her early days of producing Unscripted for MTV. We're also going to talk about her work on 90 Day Fiancé, and we are going to get in depth and behind the scenes of her work on Selling Tampa. It's a really, really good conversation, and she even has some advice for people who are new to Unscripted. So let's get into it. Monique, welcome to the podcast. How you doing today? How you feeling?
I'm great. I'm so excited to be chatting with you. Thank you so much for reaching out.
Of course. Now, how is Leo season treating you? You've been busy.
Yes, I actually just got back from a 9-day scout in Adirondacks, Mexico, and New Mexico. And now I have my wonderful Leo mother's birthday this weekend. So you Leos rock.
No, I love that. I mean, like, first of all, had you been to New Mexico before? Like, how was that?
I have never been to New Mexico, and it's mind blowing. It really looks like you're on a set for like the moon. Like the rock sculptures, the mountain ranges, and then in between it all, it's just like desert. Um, and there's like paranormal activity out there. There's like spaceports out there. It's really a unique place.
I
It's
didn't
very
know all of
unique.
that.
Yeah. They actually launch rockets out of New Mexico, a lot of them.
Wow.
So, and if
Okay.
you have $500,000, you can go on Virgin Galactic. So,
Okay. So I'm gonna take note of that. Um, All right. Well, I am so excited to be chatting with you. I'm really excited that you replied to my message because I'm excited about the shows that you've worked on and really excited for the audience to get to know you and your story. So, how did you get into the industry? What was your first show?
So my first, well, I have two different parts of the industry. I came up through news and documentaries. So I started in news at Fox 45 in Baltimore. Shout out to them. And I really thought at the beginning of my career I was going to be a documentary filmmaker. So I actually worked at PBS. I worked on Antiques Roadshow for PBS for a little bit. And then when I moved to LA, I just got like it was like the beginning of like this really big time for unscripted. I think it was like 2008 or 9. Um, Actually, it was 2005. And so there were just so many like unscripted experiments going on. And so my first reality show was Next. Remember when they used to be on the bus?
Yes. Yeah. Can
And
you
it would
talk about that? Because that was a time when I wasn't even thinking about how television was done. So I'm so interested about that.
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, that show, even though it was unscripted, it was a lot of producing and scouting and, you know, because you had the stuff that happened on the bus, and then you had a producer for the dates, the actual dates that they went
Right.
on. And then it was kind of a competition, right? Because like at the end, if you wanted somebody, you could either take the cash or the date. So it was kind of like a hybrid between competition and unscripted. And then from there, and that was just like a time where we were making about 40 episodes in 3 months because
What?
it was almost like the Wild and Out format where you know how like there's so many that they're on all the time.
Right.
So we just shot maybe 4 episodes a day. It was crazy.
What? Okay, so what did you learn, like that being your first reality show, and you're talking about reality, well, I'm sorry, your first
It
unscripted
was a
show.
little formatted, yeah.
Yes, you have unscripted, so it's unscripted. It's got competition elements. It has dating elements, right? Like, what did you learn on that show?
I learned the power of a format when you have a show like that. Format slash formula, the intro, you have the 3 dates or 4 dates, you have like this moment where you get the exit OTF. And I really just learned the importance of developing a format for that type of a show where that's more of a, formatted unscripted. And when you think about it, even regular unscripted, like docudramas or docu-follows, they all have a format,
Right.
you know, um, whether it's two group scenes, if you're talking about housewives, whether it's, you focus on three girls and then you have a group scene, or whether it's, so I feel like even when you're watching TV and you don't think it's a format, everything
As
is a
a
little
format.
formatted.
Ooh, okay.
Hmm.
Can we carry this conversation into, I'm gonna skip over some of your work and talk about 90 Day Fiance. Like,
Yes, yes.
one, what made you say yes to working on 90 Day Fiance? And then I want to get into like the format of that we may not necessarily know.
So I was obsessed with that show when it first came out. I think the first season it was Muhammad, right? And I was just like, I've never heard of this. And then I actually have a very close family member that who's brought her husband here on a 90-day K1 visa. So
Wow.
I just became obsessed with like these stories, and especially when someone who was close to me was going through it, it just made me pay attention to like all the other spin-offs too, because there's the other way, there's where the
Right.
when the opportunity popped up, I was looking for, because at the time I had been working on glossier series, things that are very, beautiful to watch, but you can just leave on and just have it play in the background. And I really wanted something to work on something where people get invested in the characters. And the production value is very stripped down on 90 Day. Like if you watch it, the camera's shaky, there's not a lot of like fancy music, and you won't hear like a hip hop track. And a lot of it, some scenes don't even have any music at all, and the
Right.
camera's just there. And for me, you have to really rely on storytelling in those scenarios, and you have to get invested in what's going on. And then you're telling a story of an outsider, or, somebody that's a fish out of water in a very respectful way too, right? So that's what made me say yes, because I was obsessed with the show, and I felt like it was going to be a challenge, and it was a rewarding one too.
Why do you think the show has become such a phenomenon? Like it's really could have its own streaming platform at this point.
you know 90 Day really boosted TLC. Like I think it's a phenomenon because everybody can relate, even if you can't relate to going through a 90-day visa, and then for somebody who's totally catfishing
Right.
you. Everybody can relate to being a fool in love. It's so relatable. I think everybody has been in the situation where, even if it hasn't been directly them, they have a loved one who gave money to a guy, or maybe it's a girl, or maybe you have a guy friend who's completely obsessed with the girl, and you know that the girl is using him for his money, and you're just like, no, like people, it's that show that it's familiar. It's a very familiar part of life, and it also uncovers a lot of the just the dynamics between us as Americans that just think that like we can get anything we want to, and you can't, So a lot of it is like hate watching in in a way, because
Right.
I feel like sometimes the Americans come off as the villains in those shows,
Absolutely. I would agree.
Um, it's interesting, especially the guys that try to mail order women. So, but it's in all the different iterations because if people actually do make it down the aisle, you get to watch 90 Day Happily Ever After. Then there's
All of them
spin-offs like
story.
right, and I actually worked on the spin-off with Darcy and Stacy, with them continuing to look for love. So I just think that it's a mix between almost a dating show, but it I think the format is, for 90 Day was that we we saw different couples in an episode. So an episode wasn't about one couple. It was like you would check in with three different couples. We would always check in with the process, right? Because that's another layer of it is like the actual time consuming and money consuming process of actually going through a K-1 visa.
Yes.
So
I think that you all did such a great job with the show. And one thing I love about TLC and I can appreciate about TLC is that they are like, they're niched down and they stick with
Mhm.
it. Like they know how to find these very like, I guess like for lack of better terms, very like mainstream characters and mainstream storylines. Like this is a real life experience of people. And I like what you said that it's relatable, whether or not I've experienced dating someone across the pond, it's still a relatable dating story. So, in regards to your work in Unscripted, can you talk a little bit about the different areas of Unscripted for people who may not know? And then what skills have been most helpful for you in those areas? Because I know you've worked on talk shows as well, which would go under
Mhm.
the unscripted area.
Yeah, so I have been in post and I have been in the field, which both require some overlapping skills and some separate skills. So, for example, when I worked on Selling Tampa, I was in the field as a co-EP, and it's a brand new show. So, usually when you work on that show, a new show, you're really heavily involved in developing the format and developing the template and really establishing what the characters are. And that requires a lot of writing. I think a lot of people think, oh, I'm in the field, so I'm just out there just producing. And it's like, no, you have several documents to write, whether it's an outline or we do things called beat sheets. And basically, beat sheets will tell you what story points you need to hit in that particular scene. And sometimes you do an episode beat sheet where you're understanding um, what story, overarching and series stories you need to be following. So there's a lot of prep that goes into being in the field. You can't just like, you know,
Show up.
say, oh, you can't show up. You need a plan. And
Yeah.
those plans require strong writing skills. And even after the scene is written, you have to write beat sheets that go back to the network and so that they can track what's been shot and how this is flowing and what we need to do next. So, because I've worked with a lot of people that really wanted to be in the field, but when it came to their writing skills and just critically thinking in a way about story, it's been challenging. Um, so, strong writing skills, I would say, and strong storytelling skills, especially when you're dealing with the ensemble cast.
Let's
Because
get into
not everybody's story is going to be a story. So you have to look at your cast and you have to find out, uh, the connections between the casts and, kind of prioritize, what your stories are.
this is good. I want to get into this and your work on Selling Tampa some more. I want to go back a little bit. Had you watched Selling Sunset before you started working on Selling Tampa, and then what did you think about it? What were your thoughts about it from a producer standpoint?
I had watched Selling Sunset. I was a fan of the real estate.
It's the real
I
estate
actually,
for me. It's so luxurious. Oh my goodness.
yes, it's the real estate, but I actually really loved when Chriselle start came into the picture, and there was a little bit of like competition with her and Christine. And then all of a sudden, Christine just started being like a sartorial dream. Like she just started being fashionable. And I
Right.
was like, I was here for it. So I think I really started to get into Selling Sunset around season 3.
Okay. I would see
Yeah.
for me, I binge watched it. Like I didn't see the show
Hmm.
until season 3 came out, so then I binged watched all of it. And I'm happy that I was able to do that because I feel like I got to know them so much. And one part of their story that I really enjoyed was Chriselle and just seeing her unfortunately go through her
Hmm.
divorce and seeing some real
Yeah.
emotions outside of the real estate. But I feel you. And then Christine was just so fly. It was like, okay. And the girls,
Yeah.
they're pretty fly. But when it came to Selling Tampa, you
Hmm.
find out that this is a brand new, it's a part of the franchise, right? But it's a new franchise. When when you're starting with a brand new when you're starting with a brand new cast, like what is your feeling? Are you excited? Are you nervous? Is it like a blank canvas?
I'm always excited, but I'm always actually just so curious because when you meet the ladies and you first get like a breakdown of who they are, you have no clue about their personality until you really hop on the phone or you really just meet them in person. And for me, it's always exciting to see who is good on paper and who kind of shines through in reality, you
Is there a
know?
difference a lot of times?
Oh yeah, sometimes on paper a cast member can just sound like the total package. They have this going on, they have this job, they're married to this person, and then they just fall flat in scene or in interview. Luckily, that wasn't the case with any of the Selling Tampa girls, but sometimes you get a cast and then you get another cast member who doesn't have any of that, but it's just so charismatic that they carry the show.
Right.
So for me, it's an ongoing process because I feel like with every first season, if you have a ensemble cast, you're really just figuring out who's gonna push through, who's gonna shine through, and then you kind of have to readjust and tailor the story sometimes, um, because somebody that you thought was great might fall to the bottom, and somebody who you never thought would carry the show rises to the top, and then you have to pivot and be like, what scenes can we get her in?
Mm.
Because
Are
she's
you doing that?
amazing.
Are you doing that pivoting while you're in production?
Yes, you're doing that pivoting while you're in production, and that's where those hot sheets come in. Because once you shoot the scene and see how it goes and see what the fallout is, or see who shined and who didn't, that's a conversation you have with your production company and your sometimes your network. Like, hey, we did a shoot today, and this person is rising to the top. We need to do a follow up scene with them, or we need to dig deeper into their background so that they can be a more fully developed character, right?
Mm.
Because in every episode, and just like let's take Selling Sunset for example, Christine kind of rose to the top, and some other ladies didn't, and that's why she has a lot of screen time,
Right.
and some don't, and some have faded away, and some have left the agency.
How did you go about approaching the story, right? Because I mean, we're in a new city, we have totally different new women,
Hmm.
we have women that, we're not necessarily familiar with. I mean, we have a foundation because of Selling Sunset, but how are you approaching the story, or are you thinking about the season finale to begin with? Like, what's the approach to the story?
I think for season one, you have to start with, well, what our approach was is we started with Sherelle, because unlike Selling Sunset, she's a black female owner, whereas in Selling Sunset, there are two guys. They were, and then the owners of the Selling Sunset firm, they were a little reserved at first, but Sherelle was like, she's a military hero. She's dating Chad, but she has a lot of things going for her in her own right, like having one of the only boutique, black agencies in Tampa and luxury real estate. Um, So really, we tried to focus it on the female empowerment of it all, and then we let the story kind of branch off from there, right? Because even though you have like this strength and this powerful and strong character, you're still running a business, and we always try to separate it and have real estate stories and then personal story. And sometimes the real estate story can be drummed up for drama too, when deals fall through or when people undercut each other in deals. Um, I would say Selling Tampa falls under what we call OccuSoap
Okay.
in the
I like
industry.
occupation.
So
So,
yeah, like occupational soap operas, right? So Lisa Vanderpump Rules would probably fall under that. Below Deck, where you're following two layers of story, the way the business is run and the interpersonal
right.
relationships. So I always thought of it as two. So like, we needed to know what the sales were like, that was another thing we could use to mine for story, is the competition between them based off of what they're actually doing in their profession. And then
Right.
we had some of the interpersonal stuff, like the cliques. You don't really even know what the cliques are until you really get in there. You see who's hanging out with who at the office, and who's having side conversations, and who's actually hanging out together. And that's how we develop the stories. And there's a little bit of pre-interviewing that goes to get into it. There's a lot of it of social media stalking to
Right.
see what's really going on, to see what's really going on in their private lives. And then you really, it's about having a really close relationship with the cast so that you can know what's going on in their lives, so that you can follow it, because everything we followed was real.
Right. Okay. I like that you talked about the relationship, because I've spoken about that
Mhm.
with someone, with Denasia Ferguson, because she is a producer for the Housewives, and having that
Oh,
relationship is helpful to getting a really good story. Did you feel a certain pressure around producing a story with an all black cast that had already had a precedent set, right? Like there's already this expectation for
mhm.
Selling Sunset. Now, when the trailer dropped, the girls were going crazy when the trailer dropped for Selling Tampa. Had you felt that pressure in the beginning of producing the show?
There was a lot of pressure, and there was also pressure because there had been real estate shows before with all black casts, and you really have to think about how to make it different. And a lot of it was storytelling, the types of stories we were telling, and a lot of it was visually,
I was gonna
like
say
the
look and feel
whole,
is important.
yeah, look and feel, we had to really set it apart. One of the things that makes Selling Tampa different, just stylistically, is that it's shot more like a scripted show. Um, we didn't do anything handheld, so you don't get that movement that you get on a lot of other reality shows. That a lot of reality shows are known for handheld work, right?
Mm,
Um,
okay.
we were on sticks. We shot like scripted shoots. So
Okay.
that was the other thing stylistically that set us apart, is that we really took time to frame the shots and make it look beautiful. Where in a lot of shows, they just want you to get the content. It's a completely different approach than 90 Day, where it's just like, they love the messy shots. Sometimes I would get network notes with that were like, "This is too pretty. Let's dirty it up."
Okay. Okay.
Um, and for selling Tampa was meant to look beautiful,
And you all did that.
and really premium, So
What excited you most, like, after you saw the
mhm.
season and, after you watched it, what were you most proud of?
I was really proud of the fact that we were able to have um, very authentic conflict without it going to the level of some other franchises. We had our drama, we had our disagreements, but I felt like the level of casting, and also there wasn't pressure from Netflix to make it messy. There wasn't pressure to have a certain level of, I, I guess, what's the word I want to use? They wanted the woman to always keep a level of class, And I think part of it is because of the women themselves were classy and didn't take it there. And we had a couple of moments where, there was a fight a argument in Miami.
Right.
But we were able to reel it back in because Sherelle, who is like the head honcho of the series, brought it back to that place. Like we didn't have any hand in telling them not to get, not to take it there. And so when she set the tone, it set the tone for the series. And we didn't get any pressure from Netflix to, drum up drama or manufacture drama or create situations that would end up in fights.
Well, you all did an
So
excellent.
thanks. Thank you.
What were you gonna say?
Oh no, that was it.
So the girls want to know: are we getting a season
Mhm.
2?
I sure hope so. I know that just in general, the production company that does Selling Sunset, Done and Done, they have their hands full with like they just launched Selling OC, I believe, Selling
Yeah.
Orange County. So the franchises are popping. I know the ladies are all anxious to get back out there. There's so much that has kind of transpired story wise. Um, you only have to go as far as Instagram to see that Rena had a baby, which was a whole
Right.
thing last, yeah. So I'm excited to get back out there with them. I think I I don't know. I don't know if it's greenlit or not, but I wouldn't be surprised if we're shooting soon again.
I think that Netflix would fumble a full bag if they decided not to go with season 2. And so once season 2 premieres, I want to make sure you come back and we can talk about it some more. But when you think about the future of Unscripted, what excites you most? And
Mm.
yeah, let's start there. What excites you most?
What excites me most is I'm starting to see more representation and I'm starting to see more women behind the scenes, Black women, people of color. Let me just put people of color behind the scenes in these projects. Like, for example, I'm currently working on a travel adventure show for Nat Geo, and the star of our show is a Black, large size guy. And I'm just so excited for the representation because when I saw the sizzle for the show, and I've never worked on an adventure show before, and I just knew I had to step outside of my comfort zone because I'm like, when have you ever gone on Nat Geo and saw just a regular, well, meaning hasn't been a celebrity, he's not Will Smith, um, but a Black travel blogger, and he's a big guy, he's 400 pounds, and there's a whole show about him, and it's so beautiful. Like he has so much joy, and they, when I was meeting with the network and the production company, they were like, it is very important for us to have people on this team that reflect the kind of show we're trying to make. And it has made all the difference. And I think I'm starting to see more and more people realizing that it makes a difference, to keep the voice of the show authentic. Whether you're writing a VO script for someone or whether you're writing story beats for somebody, obviously it's great to have a person of color on just to do those temperature checks and just POV checks and voice checks. Um, so that's what I'm really excited. I'm excited to see the industry pushing some boundaries um, and really showing us in different lights that than we've been shown in for the past few years. I'm happy about that.
I could say I totally agree. Like, I feel like, we're getting to see more trans, people of color, like you said,
Hmm.
people of color of different sizes, of different backgrounds. And it really is very exciting. And not only that, like, we're getting to see us in different types of shows, right? Like, getting to see somebody in an adventure show. We get to see the bird watching guy, like, he's getting a television
Hmm.
show, right? And so I too agree with you. Those things excite me. Now, what do you want to see differently?
I think there's still room for heads of big companies, the Disneys, the Netflixes, the Hulus, for it to have um, people at the top of the chain, because it's great for an EP to be Black, but I would love for to see more people, the real big decision makers, to be in those positions. I think we still have a long way to go there. I think we still have a long way to go in getting projects that feature Black talent the same budget as projects that don't. Um, because sometimes I think, we just get the short end of the stick sometimes. I think we have a long way to go in equal pay. And, unionization, obviously, and just general treatment in the industry. I mean, I saw some different things happening during COVID where people just were like, nope, not doing this. I have to draw a line. But I'm starting to see things shift back over into working nonstop. um, and as a creative, as somebody who has to write and has to talk a lot all day, like I definitely feel like we need periods of rest, periods of rejuvenation, and times where you're just off. Um, so I think we have a long way to go in that respect.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like the periods of rest help us do our best work.
Hmm.
And I hope that we give ourselves those things, right? Like
Hmm.
I understand we need our coin, also we need our rest. Do you have any advice for women who are new to the unscripted world, especially a world that's different from when we started, right? With a lot of the
Hmm.
remote work, remote shoots
Hmm.
sometimes. What would be your advice?
I would say try every side of this industry. If you don't like field and if that's just not your thing, try post. You know, um, the probably the best decision I ever made was to go into post for a little bit, and so that I could be versatile. And learning Avid was such an essential skill, and I didn't even learn it in school. Like I got my master's from Emerson, and I didn't even learn how to do Avid there because that wasn't my discipline. um, you can go on YouTube and you can learn it. I have so many talks with women who are like, I don't like the field, but I still like unscripted. I'm like, you would be great in post, but you have to learn Avid. That's like my number. And learning how to construct a story in post helps you become a better storyteller, even if you decide to go back into
Absolutely.
the field. I think it's just an essential skill to have. And you could do Premiere, but I just feel like Avid is a little bit more industry standard for like the larger shows out there. Get a mentor early. I would also say that, and you don't even have to tell them. They don't even have to be your official mentor. Like there doesn't need to be a whole like we're gonna meet every month. Find somebody whose career you like and try to find out what they do. Try to ask questions of them, especially if you are back in the office. Learn from them. I've been fortunate enough to have a lot of Black women, to work with a lot of Black women who have just been open to sharing their knowledge, because a lot of times they don't get asked by their peers. um, and sometimes we just want to be, they're excited to share the information, and to be heard by somebody. So find that person that is a wealth of knowledge, that person that's been there for 20, 30 years that you might think isn't the coolest, but they are probably a wealth of information.
Absolutely.
um, Sit in an edit bay with an editor and just watch them if you can, because they a phrase that sometimes working in post I hate to hear is they do fix it in post. A lot of things are made amazing that you mess up in field and post. And so, like I said, I think putting yourself on both ends of it is a huge skill, and it can also help you feel um, decide what lane that you want to be in.
I think that is phenomenal advice. I really hope that for anyone who's listening who is new to scripted or coming, new to the industry, that you really take Monique's advice, because I feel like especially the note on post, working in post and helping you become a better storyteller. 100% agree with that. All right, so this has been great. Now I want to get into the soundbite round. So I ask you 5 quick questions, and I just want to know the first thing that comes to mind. So, what are you watching?
Westworld.
What are you loving in general?
I am enjoying tennis. I just started taking tennis lessons.
I love it.
And I kind of feel, yeah,
Are you feeling like Serena out there? Serena and Venus?
I'm feeling not close to Serena or Venus right now, but just being taught a new sport at my age. I'm 42. There's I don't get a bunch of chances to learn a bunch of new things, but it's been challenging, but it's been great, and it's such a great way to let out some steam. There's nothing like it.
That's exciting. All right, so favorite unscripted show ever?
RuPaul's Drag Race, hands down. I didn't even need to think about that.
I love it. I love it so much. Mine would be a competition show too, Top Chef. I'm obsessed with Top Chef.
Oh, that's my number two. That'll be
Okay.
my number two.
What's the most impactful book you've read?
The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Bleep. It was a
Okay.
very good book, but it's not what you think. The title definitely is a throws you off, but the subtle art of not giving a bleep was life changing.
Okay. And then do you have a secret YouTube obsession?
Yes, I do.
What is it?
I really love pimple popping videos. Something about extractions. Um,
I get it.
not that, not, and I was a fan of Dr. Pimple Popper before she got her show on TLC.
Mm,
I don't like the big cysts. I just want to stay on the face with the blackheads. I don't need to see like all that other stuff being removed. But when she goes in there with the nose, I'm just like, I could watch that. I could watch that for days. So yes. And also my second backup one is like finding really old vintage music videos,
oh,
like for old songs. And I just like go and I Google like, I don't know, Teddy Pendergrass or whatever, and then you find like them performing. I just go down rabbit holes of finding like old performances and music videos.
I'm gonna have to check that out. I think like maybe the oldest music video I've looked at is like Whitney Houston's "I'm Your Baby Tonight." Like that's it. That's like the oldest, but that was like it felt like it could be Alien Superstar from Beyonce, to be honest. But thank you so much for joining me today, for sharing, your story and for sharing your knowledge about unscripted television. I mean, you have worked on some very popular, very important cultural shows, especially for Black women and Black people. And so I'm just really glad that we got to have this conversation today.
Thank you. This is my first podcast, and you put my nerves at ease. So thank you so much.
Yeah, and I just want to say I feel like when Selling Tampa came out, like everybody should have had you on their podcast or on their website because it is the producers, it is the directors, it is the people behind the scenes that are really also very responsible for the success of these shows. And when I like on Deadline and I'm on Hollywood Reporter and I'm on like Shadow and Act, I'm like looking for your kind of stories. So I'm really happy that I get to be the one to share these stories. So thank you again, Monique.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for reaching out, and hopefully, I shared something that people can just take and put in their back pocket. And I want to see more of y'all out there in the field or in posts with me. So hope this reaches somebody.
I believe that it will. Well, I hope you all enjoyed my interview with Monique. I mean, she's so brilliant, and you can tell that she really loves what she does. And I appreciate all of the information that she shared and the advice that she shared for those of us or for those of you who are new to the unscripted industry. So if you like this podcast, if you enjoyed this interview, please make sure you rate and review and make sure you're following, okay? Make sure you subscribe so you can keep up with the podcast. Talk to y'all soon.